Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! ISB!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard a new week on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope you had a great weekend, ready to get things started. It's going to be warm today, so we've got that going for us, which is nice. Better than that, we've got Greg Rakestraw with us, which is even nicer. Greg, how are you, sir?
I would take a warm day over me anytime, but I'm doing great, and thanks for the kind words.
A hectic weekend, I guess, to say the least, this weekend, as sectional championships were fraught all about. Won and lost teams some surprises, but that's always the case. It shouldn't really be a surprise, but some gifts, I should say, gifts that were given to us with some exciting play.
There was probably three sectionals that were talked about seemingly more than anything else around the state. One was the 5 overtime game in the championship down at Lagodi in 1A with two of the top three teams in the state, Bar Reeve outlasting Orleans. Those teams played each other twice this year, and they played 8 overtimes against each other. And before you ask, there actually been a couple of documented 6 overtime games in sectionals in years gone by. I think one was 1980. I think the other was 1986. But a remarkable game with the typical standard 3,000 to 4,000 plus crowd at Lagodi. Every time that Lanesville would make a region, or my mom or dad would call me and go, "Is this a 1A gym?" Yes, this is a 1A gym. They built it that big at the Jack Butcher Arena. The other finish that people are talking about is the double overtime finish between Brebeuf Jesuit, who is number 1 in 3A and has Butler-bound Evan Haywood, against Garin Catholic, who was last year's runners-up, against Northwood, losing in overtime. Garin won that game in double OT. If you have not seen the play, go look it up. A kind of a backwards pass on an inbounds, where they had to get the ball in the half court. So a handful of seconds left to go. Everybody kind of chased the ball, rotated up. Kid from Garin Catholic threw it to an open man underneath the basket. They win on their home floor, again in front of a packed house, 75-74 in double overtime. The other game that got people's attention because of simply who was playing in it was 1 versus 2. Fischer's wins at Noblesville 49-47, and it is the first sectional in the new history of Fischer's High School from a boys' standpoint. This is their 18th year being open as a school, splitting off from HSE, and in a battle of 1 versus 2, Fischer's won that one, and their reward is number 4 Kokomo, whom they played back in December and beat by 20, by far the widest margin of loss in the 3 losses that Kokomo has had so far this season. So really, Jim, the storyline was crowds were phenomenal across the state all week long, and we expect nothing less coming up at 16 regional sites coming up this Sunday, or this Saturday, rather.
Yeah, sellouts all abound, and I was reading the Garin Brebeuf game. I didn't see it, but I sure heard about it, and it's you go from it's funny how quickly you can be the I started to say the goat, but the black sheep to the white knight, because I think then the kid that scored the basket is actually the one that threw it out of bounds or let it become an errant ball, but he happened to be the guy that was wide open waiting for it to make amends.
Correct. And basically what happened is that he knew he had to get the ball in bounds, not have a timeout. And it literally hit his head. It's like, all right, on the inbounds pass, I have gotten a 4. I have to throw this to an area, and hopefully a teammate finds it. And that's exactly what he did. Well, obviously in that situation, everybody starts to chase the ball And usually on an underneath out of bounds play, who is the first guy after the first pass that's going to be open? The inbounder. And that's exactly how it played out. Credit him for the speed of thought. No, I've got to get this ball in bounds. And then for his teammate to find him in such a fashion with the dying seconds of the second overtime.
Oh, man. And so that means we've got more excitement coming up this week, Greg.
Correct. And so probably the headline game again is Fishers and Kokomo. That game is in Newcastle. And frankly, that's not that close for Kokomo. It's obviously an old North Central Conference rivalry spot for them. But to be honest, that site was selected because it's the biggest high school gym in the world. It's the biggest high school gym available. And because of both the support that Fishers has had this year and obviously the Flory factor, that place is going to sell out. I think they'll have 9,000 solid to watch that game. I'll be going to Southport for the doubleheader, which is my tradition. And even with this new format of potentially moving teams around a little bit and having different classes at a given site, it's all 4A because of the preponderance of Indianapolis area teams in 4A. It will be Ben Davis and New Pal, who was somewhat of a surprise win over Greenfield Central, and then Center Grove and Franklin. Their girls met in the semi-state. Their boys meet in the regional, and that should be a really good game. And so that'll be my site. But again, 16 different sites across the state. Game times are either 1 and 4 or 4 and 7. Just a reminder, this is the second year of us going back to a 1-game regional, and then you'll play a 2-game semi-state next Saturday.
Looking forward to that, man. I can't wait. I think I'm going to try to head down to Huntingburg and catch our friend Sharon Wilkerson and Jeffersonville, because if I'm not, am I correct? They're taking on Evansville Harrison, and Pat Graham is an assistant for, Harrison. Pat's an assistant for Harrison.
Correct. He was at Memorial, and I think he's at Harrison now. Harrison has won a sectional for the.
Go ahead.
Harrison has won a sectional for the first time since 2013. You know that I saw Jeff play in Kokomo's tournament, and I came away exceedingly impressed by Jeff. And I know they've been kind of up and down at times this year, but they literally brought their A game for all 3 games at Seymour. And again, just to point out for any Southern Indiana folks and a lot of them that listen to this show, again, has become ingrained over the last 25 years. If you win your sectional, just like in the old 1-class days, you are going to Seymour. So let's point out again with this new format. And again, this is frankly fair for both teams. If I said, name me a sizable gym smack dab in the middle of Jeffersonville and the east side of Evansville, that answer would be Huntingburg Memorial Gymnasium at Southridge. And so, again, they are going to Southridge this week for their game. They'll play just once, and then we'll see. My guess would be is that whomever wins that game would likely head to Southport for the semi-state because, again, the other 3 teams in that semi-state would be coming from Marion County or the surrounding areas.
So who's playing at Seymour?
So Seymour will be Forest Park and Switzerland County, and then Batesville and Scottsburg. So again, I thought in that new format, that was the right way to go because Forest Park and Switzerland County are not close. That's a good place in the middle for those 2 schools to meet. Same for Batesville and Scottsburg. Scottsburg obviously will have kind of a home court advantage being all of 20 minutes away. But for Batesville, again, of the sites that were available, that was the convenient middle of the road to put those 2 teams together.
Well, that's certainly where they'll end up. It's just hard for me to break this Seymour thing. We're talking. This is decades. Right. This has been the case, man. I'm like, I would be just so disappointed.
You can still, Jimmy, you can still go to Seymour. You'll see 2 great games. It just won't be the teams you're used to seeing playing at the Lloyd Scott Gymnasium.
That's any shockers for you?
I'm not sure if anything would constitute in terms of being a shocker. Maybe a small handful of upsets. But, I would say this, there were these 3 kind of mega sectionals in, the Indianapolis area. New Pal beating Greenfield Central is not a stunner, but it's still a surprise just because Greenfield was the last unbeaten team. Greenfield had the best individual talent in terms of Braylon Mullins, but New Pal played them close during the regular season. It was a 3-point game. That is obviously a massive rivalry. And while Braylon Mullins is a fantastic player, New Pal has their own fantastic player in Julius Gizzi, who is now at over 1,000 points for his career, nearly 800 of them this year. Entered the postseason as the second leading scorer in the state at over 30 points a game. This is after he averaged about 9 points a game as a sophomore last year and also dropped 45 pounds from his sophomore season to his junior season. So in the local area, that would be a surprise. I think Avon beating Terre Haute North was a slight surprise, not a tremendous one. In the mega sectionals here, the top ranked teams won in terms of both Fishers and Lawrence North, and potentially those two are on a collision course to meet up for a second time this year. Fishers won in the regular season, 90-79, February the 13th. Frankly, the game wasn't that close. Fishers led by 20 for most of it. Those two are in opposite halves of the bracket. So those two neighboring school districts could play each other for the state championship in 4A coming up on March 30th.
And then up at Newcastle, they should do a good job of filling that gym. Those are two Kokomo. You've got a good sized town, and of course Flory-Badunga in tow, and then the team that's looked upon as being champion.
Correct. And again, Fishers walloped Kokomo when they played on December the 9th. They played in the Foreign Tip-Off Classic at Southport Fieldhouse. Fishers does not have Jalen Harrelson, who left after last year to go play at LaPorte La Lumiere. What they do have is some size in Keenan Garner, who athletically can match up to some degree with Flory-Badunga. They've also got two tremendous freshman guards that see time, and Cooper Zachary. His uncle Randy played at Ball State, played at Alexandria, and then Jason Gardner Jr. And again, that would be Jason Gardner from Indiana Mr. Basketball's son that plays. They're both freshmen. They both see time. It's a very deep Fishers team. Now, what I will say about Kokomo is this. Batman's got a bit of a Robin these days because Flory has been tremendous. They've got a 6'7" power forward in Carson Rogers, and he has played exceedingly well on this win streak that Kokomo has been on. They have not lost since losing the opening game of the Hall of Fame Classic to Crispus Attucks back on December 30th. So I do think this is a better Kokomo team that Fishers will see than the one they saw back on December the 9th.
You just said Gardner Jr. You're really making me feel old, man.
Jimmy, that moment for me was when I got to cover Ladrell Whitehead's son, 13, 14 years ago. So I'm already there, believe me.
Don't say that. Don't even say that to me.
Because I'm the same age as Ladrell, because he was a senior when I was a senior. So welcome to the club, buddy. We're middle-aged. Welcome to it.
Holy smokes. Brother, I thank you so much. Looking forward to this weekend as the excitement continues in the Indiana High School basketball tournament. Make sure you follow Greg and check out what's coming up. Nothing right now on ISE because everything is going through IHSAA, right?
Correct. So what I will say is this: is that we'll have crews that will be streaming games from Southport. We'll do the Kokomo Fishers game. We'll also do Lawrence North and Avon. That game is at Greenfield Central. IHSATV.org. It is all free streaming. This round goes to pay-per-view in the semi-state. For those of you that are watching or listening to this show in the Indianapolis area, you can see our Center Grove Franklin game Saturday night at Southport, 7 o'clock on MyIndyTV 23.
Looking forward to it. Greg Rakestraw, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Jimmy. Talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Greg Rakestraw joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Andy Moore Honda, of course, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymoorehonda.com to get more to your door. And Hoosier Hanks East, where we were last night for after the game with Todd Leary. We'll talk about that as well. Indiana gets a big win over Maryland, at Maryland, no less. Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, joins us next to talk about that and much more. Back right after this break.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Man, I just tried to post that, and it just says the title's bad, and then it just keeps.
Just what do you mean? Says the title's bad.
Oh, let me go back and just do a new one. Add video. All right, add video. God dang it! Paste.
Actually, honestly, don't even worry about it. This will take me less than 2 minutes to do. So just you.
I know.
Show.
But I want to. But afterwards, I want to learn how to do this correctly. Because that's something I would like to do immediately from now on. You know.
I mean, you know how to post regularly on there, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it afterwards.
That's fine.
Don, I bet that flight back was a lot better last night.
No question.
Did they bust the champagne out?
What's that?
Did you bust the champagne? So you just kidding.
Yeah, I hope you're kidding. No, it was a good flight home. Players are excited that
they should be.
Turned it around a little bit, which is good. Another tough week coming up, though. We'll find out how long, whether that's a light at the end of the tunnel or a freight train.
Yeah. Hey, back-to-back wins. I did not expect them to win in Maryland. I'll tell you. That's just one of the places Maryland is. They played well. They don't play well on the road, but they played well at home. And they needed that win. Not that I want to give up all of our stuff right now, but.
Right. No, there's no question. Maryland needed it just as much as Indiana needed it, and they didn't get it. I can't imagine that. I don't want to say too much here because Kevin Willard is not my favorite coach, but I don't think he is.
He's not listening.
I know. He's one of those. He's kind of a turd, and I say that because of Johnny Holiday, who I know really well. And I don't think he's one of those guys that is pretty caught up in his own aura, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he treats media people like crap. So not my favorite.
I think there's been someone like that in our realm recently.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I know that. It's just I can't. The name escapes me.
All right, here we go, guys.
Or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back on this Monday. I hope you're ready to get your week started. We're going to do that for you. If not, the voice of the Hoosiers joining us right now, Don Fischer. Chop Shop, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, of course, where you can find Don, at least for the next, how many more weeks, Don?
Actually, this will be the final show for the men. We're actually not going to do a show the week of the Big Ten tournament because Indiana might be traveling on Monday, but that will be a show. There'll be a show there that night, and it's going to be all ladies. It'll be at 7:05, the normal time for the Woodson show. And Austin Render will host it, and Terry Morin will be the guest along with players and coaches on her staff.
So we'll look forward to that. You got another week, though, of Don out at the Chop Shop Market and Table, where
tonight.
You can tonight rather, and come out and join and enjoy a fine meal while they chit chat. Don, a big win for Indiana for so many reasons. They needed it. It was a road win. They were down big. I think I sent out a text or tweet during the game that Indiana starts to come back. I said, we've seen this before. Can they sustain it and get all the way back? And boy, did they. They won that game going away in surprising, shocking fashion. They hit up to one time 12 shots in a row and hit 80% free throws. I'm like, what the hell's going on? But it was certainly fun to watch. The fans enjoyed the heck out of it, and I know that it had to be a lot more fun for you to broadcast.
Well, there's no question. The last two ball games, the Wisconsin ball game on Tuesday and then the ball game against Maryland yesterday, both really good wins for this program. Both were very much needed, to say the least. Without question, Indiana had to win that Wisconsin ball game. They did not want to lose their fifth straight contest and I think get a sixth home court loss on the season, which would have been detrimental, obviously. And then on top of that, I think one of the real keys, and I know some people are going to go, oh, we've heard this before, but Xavier Johnson coming back, despite the fact that he didn't play great against Wisconsin, but all of a sudden, I think this team looks different. It looks more confident. It looks like it's capable of playing a good basketball game. And certainly yesterday in the second half, they're down 10 at halftime, and we've seen that before. For whatever reason, they didn't do a good job on Jameer Young in the first half. They let him get to the rim. For 10, 11 points, I think, in the first half. I think he hit like 5 layups along with some free throws in the first half. All of a sudden in the second half, they shut him down. He was not getting to the rim hardly at all. He had to do almost all of his damage from outside in the second half of the ball game. That's just a good adjustment and good defense on this guy. And then they started making shots, and they were phenomenal in making shots in the second half. They shot 73% in the second half of this ball game. 19 to 26. And knocked down threes. They were great from the free throw line. They were great from the 3-point line, and they were terrific just shooting baskets in the second half. And without question, I mean, when Indiana plays like that, they can beat anybody.
And this was a game that Khalil Ware, I'm not going to say he wasn't there because he was doing a job defensively and rebounding from a scoring standpoint. After coming off of a 27-point scoring performance, it was a lot of, we were wondering, all right, how's this going to come back? And he actually, that shows some maturity when things aren't going your way, but he still found a way to contribute and to be a part of what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, the second half of the ball game, I mean, he barely touched the basketball. If you think about what Khalil did in this game, or what Indiana did, because Indiana didn't just go inside. They started shooting outside shots, and they had everybody contribute from the outside for the most part. You had Anthony Leal and Gabe Cupps and Xavier Johnson all hitting the threes in this ball game, along with Mackenzie Mbaku, who had 4 of those threes. And when you've got different guys knocking down shots, all of a sudden you can play different. I mean, you play different offensively and you play different defensively. The intensity level with which Indiana played in this ball game, to me, was a huge factor as well. And I want to give credit to Xavier Johnson here. I mean, he played a terrific ball game.
Absolutely. They don't win the game without him.
No, and why were we more effective at getting Jameer Young shut down? Because Xavier Johnson was out there on the floor with his strength, his athleticism, his quickness, his ability to disrupt things for the other team. And I know that we've said all along that Mike has talked about for way too long about Xavier not being out on the floor for his team, and some people making that like an excuse. But the reality is he hasn't been available. And yeah, you've got to find somebody else that can help you in that regard. And the help hasn't been dramatic by any stretch of the imagination. But getting him back, all of a sudden this team looks different. It just does.
And oddly, he coming off the bench seems to be working for him. I don't know if it gives him a little bit of time to relax, take the game in and see the flow of the game and then come in. But he has just been performing pretty well off the bench, and especially in this game, very efficient, 5 of 7, 13 points. He had 6 assists to 1 turnover. And if you get that Xavier Johnson, Indiana's going to win a lot of games.
Yeah. And if you think about it, I mean, Didn't play great in the Wisconsin game, but he wasn't bad. He was 2 for 3 from the 2 for 3 with a 3-pointer in the ball game. He only scored 6 points, but at the same time, he was out there and he was disrupting things, which is what he can do as long as he can stay out of foul trouble and he makes the right choices out there on the floor. He really helps this basketball team, no question.
Mackenzie Mbako, his continued growth is really starting to show. The back half of the season, he has really shown it's the Mackenzie Mbako that people expected to see from the get-go, but he is really starting to pick it up as far as being consistent. 24 points, 8 of 15 shooting, 4 of 8 behind the arc. He was 4 of 4 at the line, as was Malik Renew, but that 8 of 8 free throws from those two, it's so important because this is a team that had just been giving away points and games at the free throw line.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's percentage is 66% on the season. That's just awful. And that's a team total, but you need to be right around 70%. And obviously, Indiana hasn't been there all year long. The free throw shooting has been abysmal at times. But in this ball game yesterday, they played exceptionally at the free throw line, 14 of 17. You've got to have that kind of performance if you're going to win ball games, especially in this league, especially at how tight everything is in this league right now. Anybody on any given night can beat anybody else, excepting Purdue for the most part. I mean, Purdue has been beaten a few times this year, but not dramatically. And it's been good fortune for other teams that have been able to accomplish that feat. But the fact of the matter is, everybody else in this league is capable of beating you if you don't play some of your best basketball. And it's been proven out by the number of games that are close and by all these teams that are still all stacked in there behind Purdue.
Yeah, and so next, Indiana stays on the road as they travel up to Minnesota to that wonderful place, the Barn. I hope you take your jacket. But talking to Todd Leary, he loved shooting in that facility. He said, I don't know what it was, but it was always a good shooting gym. What? Because it's kind of one of the more unique facilities in the Big Ten. What is any different perceptions you see when you've been there for the guys?
Well, where we sit now, I don't see anything different because we're in a bad spot right now. We're up in a corner, which is way away from one of the ends of the floor.
Nobody puts baby in a corner. Don, come on. What's going on there?
Well, we got put up in a corner there, and it's the worst spot in the Big Ten to do a game from. But all that said, the difference where we used to sit, we were up in the balcony, which was not a bad spot. And the reason it wasn't because the floor there is raised like 3 feet. The whole court is raised 3 feet. If you watch, when you see a game at Minnesota, both teams' players come up and go up steps to get on the floor. So like 2 or 3 steps. I think it's 3 steps that they have to take to get up on the floor. So it's a unique place. If you go too hard at one end of the floor, at either end of the floor, and you go without worrying about hitting a wall or something like that, you're going to fall off the deck.
That would scare me because you see guys a lot going after a loose ball or something. I'm surprised it doesn't happen, but obviously they've been doing it there for a long, long time. But Indiana going there now, and this is another game that they're playing a team that needs to win this game. Minnesota is fighting to stay out of the bottom. They're fighting I'm sure they still have hopes of an NCAA tournament bid, although I think that may be faint, but they still have hopes. So they can't lose a home game. Indiana, they're in the same boat. They can't lose either. So this is must win for both of these teams.
No question. In fact, that's the case in both these games coming up for Indiana this week. The 2 teams that are in front of them in the Big Ten standings right now are Minnesota and Michigan State. Both of those teams are who Indiana plays this week. So Indiana controls its own destiny. And Minnesota and Michigan State do as well. So everybody's got the same thing. They're fighting for the same thing, to stay out of that Wednesday ball game in both games this week.
Yeah, I was up really late looking at numbers. And if Indiana wins out, that would put their 16 and 13 now. That would give them 18 wins. If they win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, that puts them at 20 and 14 if they lose the next one, or even if they win 3 games. I don't know that they can make the tournament, only because of their metrics are so bad.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense when I look at some other teams. You look at Maryland, you look at Ohio State, they're so far above Indiana in these things, and it makes no sense. But something I did watch in regards to the Big 12 is their early season schedule was against really low-level teams, and they beat the crap out of them and got their net rankings up really high. Now they just beat up in each other in the Big 12, and none of those are bad losses, so they don't take a hit. But right. Indiana's matrix numbers are so unbelievably low. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't hold on any hope whatsoever for the NCAA tournament. I just don't, unless they make a big run in the Big Ten tournament, which is possible. The way they played these last 2 ball games, and if they could come up with 2 wins heading into the tournament, you just don't know. But the fact of the matter is, you don't want to play on Wednesday night no matter what, because if you do, you're not going to make it to the Big Ten championship. You're just not this year. Because anybody can beat you. That's the whole thing. It's proven that anybody in this league can beat anybody on a given night. And the teams that get the double bye, they're just sitting there waiting and resting and being able to get ready to do whatever they have to do to win. So it's such an advantage to have the double bye. It's still an advantage to have the bye, but if you don't have it, I don't think you got a chance. So right now, Indiana's fighting for its life. These 2 games this week are going to be critical in that vein. And I think Indiana's season will end as soon as the Big Ten tournament's over with, because I don't think they can make the NCAA field no matter what, because of what you just said, the metrics.
It's a shame. Up next, Don will be at Chop Shop Market and Table this evening at 7:05 for Inside Indiana Basketball, men's basketball with Mike Whitson. And this is the last live show with them. The women will be there next week. Are they going to be there tonight as well?
I believe they have a show tonight. I think that's the case. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. I have not checked with anybody because I don't do that show. So right. I don't worry about it. We didn't have a women's show last week. Their Big Ten tournament is this week, right?
It starts. Is it that soon? I think they have. Don't they have one more game? Or are they done?
No, I think they finished the regular season yesterday.
I know they had senior day yesterday, but I didn't know if they had another road game or not.
I don't know.
The seeds are already out. You're right. The seeds are already out. I remember seeing those. So
yeah, I think
we'll get this started.
I think the women play the Big Ten tournament this week. Their portion of the tournament this week, and the men, of course, are next week. So, and
you have your bags packed for Minneapolis?
I have not even thought about it yet. Well, you mean for tomorrow? Because we are traveling to Minneapolis tomorrow. We're going to be going to Minneapolis twice in the next 2 weeks.
Ooh, I can't say a word then. I cannot complain then. I will shut my mouth right now. Don Fischer, he'll be at Chop Shop tonight. Thank you, sir. We greatly appreciate you.
Thanks, Jim. See you.
You betcha. The voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining us here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio, brought to you by Chop Shop Market and Table, where you can dine in, get 10% off of the deli, the bakery, all the items they have on the other side in the market area. Wagyu steaks from the Voiles family, right in Mitchell, Indiana, right down on the farm. So stop in there and load up on some steaks to take home after you have a good meal. They've got specials every night. I was in there Saturday for the cod. Ooh, yum. It was good. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home... What was I looking at?
Just a heads up, Dustin can only do one segment today. Dopirak, he said he's got to catch a flight. But he will be on with us. Just not for 2 segments.
He's fired.
I know. I told him.
Just kidding. But I do get a refill. Well, actually, that might be the only open segment we have then.
Maybe.
Well, I'll tell Travis is available.
Well, he's coming on.
No, I know. Hold on.
Oh.
Travis is able to come on from home today, and we'll have more time, was what I was going to say.
Yeah, I saw that.
You did?
Mhm.
Oh, did he? Was that to both of us? Okay.
It was.
All righty then. All righty then. Let's see. Oh, IU football pro day tomorrow.
That's cool.
Oh, this Caitlin Clark record. Oh boy. It's driving me insane.
You hear the birds chirping in the background
Where?
in my house, or in my neighborhood, I should say. It's funny, not that anybody cares about the NIT, but Don didn't even mention that Indiana would play in that if they obviously won't make the NCAA tournament. He said their season would end after the.
If you can do it? Question mark.
I missed the last part of that.
We're back in just a few seconds. Here we go.
HRVs, CRVs, Honda Ridgelines, payment free for 90 days. Or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMoreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Ooh, a little mood music from John, the producer. Setting the tone, baby. We need to lower the lights. A little strobe, little circular light going or something.
Some good vibes on Monday.
Yeah, if I had a remote control deal where I could handle the light situation. I am right now working on getting some midweek guests this week, which normally we have things scheduled out, but you can stay on. High school basketball. Well, there's I love that Dustin Dopirak joining us from Indy Star. What's the shirt, man? It looks cool already. Bouncing Souls. Is that a group?
A New Jersey punk band, for those who don't know. Are we on live or are we on break?
We're on live.
Okay, cool.
That's a great name.
It is a great name.
There are so many times I hear of a band and I'm like, okay, how in the hell do you come up with that name? It's awesome. It's just, I'm like, I don't know where you pulled that out from. There's so many Collective Soul. I mean, you could just take a tons. It's just, I'm like, okay, that's cool. How do you come up if you're trying to think of a band name? How do you come up with that? Well, that was not hard, really, but
yeah, no, there's little places. I think I want to say the one other place in sort of pop culture I've seen Bouncing Souls is in there's like ads for like kind of magazine ads, not like, you know, television ads, but magazine ads for Doc Martin boots. I think it says they have bouncing soles, SOLES. So they changed it to this. You know, stuff like that. I think there's small things like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say a funny one is Leonard Skinnard.
What is that again? There's a reason for that.
Named after one of their gym teachers or something.
That's great. That makes sense.
Yes, they just I think slightly changed the spelling, I believe. But and that's just another. It's like,
yeah,
they're so ingrained in your head too. It doesn't even matter. You're like, oh yeah, Leonard Skinnard, or you know, flying monkeys. It just starts. Once it's ingrained, it just comes out, and there's no thought to it.
It's got to be a little weird. Yeah, we totally, like, somebody from my high school should have named a band Savage McNavage, because that's what we called our high school gym teacher. He was something, and we totally should have named a band Savage McNavage. That'd be great.
That is exactly what that is, man.
What's that?
That's exactly a great name.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
he was qualified. You could drop him in the middle of any desert, jungle, you know, like ocean, whatever. He was coming out of it alive somehow, somewhere. McNavage was
with a knife, with a
fish
you didn't in his mouth or something.
You didn't have to give him much. Yeah, you didn't have to give him much. He was going to make it. That man was a survivor for sure. He has to be. I mean, like I presume he has not changed one single bit. So
he's probably still surviving.
Definitely
still surviving. The Pacers take an L against the Spurs. 117-105. Kind of a dreary first quarter for the Pacers.
Brutal.
And other than that, everything was. They were there, but just that first quarter, they put themselves in a hole, and kind of everything was uphill from then on.
Yeah, no, I mean, a biggest thing is this was seeing Wemby up close, and oh my God, he's different than he was.
He's all right. He's okay, right?
Yeah, he's not bad. They don't know. It's hard to know what to do with him. You know, like that's kind of what the point he's reached already, is that, like, you can't attempt anything in the paint if he's close. I mean, there were shots that he had no business. You know, a normal 6'11" human, 7 foot human can't. You know, like you know, like Halliburton had one, just this clean layup, clean lane all the way, and he goes up left-handed, did everything you're supposed to do right, and Wembanyama pins it off the backboard, and Halliburton's like, "Can I go to goaltend there?" And they're like, "No, you can't. That was actually legal. Like, if there was any other person on earth right there, you're fine, but just not with him." You know, I mean, like, he affects so many shots, and, you know, there's shots that you don't even bother taking that you usually are you know, easy. And Halliburton had a couple where he just passed up, where he just, like, saw Vic and was like, "Nope, not trying this," turned around, passed it backwards. And he has that kind of effect. And it's just like the whole first quarter, they were just completely discombobulated, just did not know what to do with themselves. The only guy who really had it going was McConnell. And a big part of the reason why McConnell had it going, he was basically just told the bigs, just stay lifted, just stay up, you know, at or above foul line extended. Just keep him away from me, basically, was his, you know, sort of deal. And when Halliburton goes to the rim, you know, Wembanyama is going to the rim. When McConnell goes to the rim, it's like, okay, I'll chance this little guy here, you know, getting by me. And that burned them, you know, and McConnell just had one of those McConnell games where he just finds a way to get layups and finds a way to get, you know, 6, 7, 8 foot jumpers. You know, just, it was a McConnell of McConnell games. He had 26. He was 13 and 15. Him and Siakam were the only guys who could do anything. Siakam figured out a way, and obviously Siakam has crazy, ridiculous length, so he doesn't need as much separation. You know, basically, if he can kind of body Wemby and kind of bounce and fade, you know, he's big enough to make that. Some guys aren't even big enough to do that. You know, in that case, like, even getting that kind of fade separation isn't going to work. Siakam is big enough to do it. But it was really wild. And, you know, like, the Spurs are not good. And, you know, they would have just shellacked the Pacers if they were. But if they get good, it's going to get crazy in a hurry. You know,
I mean, think, like, they won't get good. They've got Pop down there from Mishawaka, or from wherever he's from up there.
It's not going to take long, a year, 2 years. I mean, it's just, he is just capable of changing the game in so many ways. And he had 31, and he's hitting threes, and he's dishing out dimes on top of just being a condor in the lane. I mean, it is wild what this kid can do. It's absolutely nuts.
Did you know Rick Bozic and Popovich went to the same high school?
I think I did know that. The region rolls deep. The Serbian guys roll deep up in the region, big time.
Yes. Rick is well, you know what? I'm starting to say a big Serbian. He's not he's a normal size Serbian. Rick's about 6'5". People probably don't, if you've not been around, you don't realize that Rick Bozic is like 6'5".
Yeah, he's a big dude. Rick's a big dude.
But very gentle as a lamb.
He is
super, super, super nice. Tyrese Halliburton, I don't want to say struggling, but
he's struggling. Yeah, he's struggling.
Okay, let's just say it then. Struggling.
Yeah.
He's not been he's been underperforming a little bit. Now's probably if you're gonna have a little lull, now I guess is the time to do it and then come out of it. But they're getting awfully close to the end of the season where this is not where you want your star, your guy, your to be struggling. They need him to stay on par.
Yeah, I mean, it's not optimal at all. He's getting sick of me. So if he happens to find this, I'm sorry. I had to ask about it yesterday, man. But he is definitely struggling for sure. 5 of his last 31 from 3 is not great. Over the past 5 games, I think he's shooting somewhere around 33% from the floor. Maybe it's 38. I got the numbers jumbled up in my mind, but it's sub 40 from the field. And that's not what you want, obviously, from your all-star. He's averaging 11 a game over the last 5, 14 a game over the last 10. He's got a couple really good performances in there. Obviously, I thought he was really good against New Orleans in the win on Wednesday. The Knicks game, obviously, in the Garden was pretty good when he passed the ball off the backboard to himself and then hit Siakam in the corner. Was a pretty good performance, but by and large, he is struggling, and there's a lot of reasons for it, potential explanations. Presumably he's not 100%, and I don't think he is good enough to play. He's given every indication that he's good enough to play, and it's not something that's such a problem. He's past the minutes restriction. He got 36 last night, and I don't think he's making it any worse. But it's just a question of, there's still soreness in the hamstring, and I don't know if he's going to feel like 100% himself this year. And so it's just a question of, I don't know that he would be better off not playing. I don't think. I don't think he would be. I guess this is when you just got to, as the all-star, find a way to grit through. But I don't think it's going to debilitate him or anything like that. But I mean, presumably, hamstrings stick around. They just do. That's kind of how they operate, is they, even once you're past the point of it being dangerous for you to continue playing, it still reminds you it exists. And I think that's the thing he said a couple times, is to say that, like, anybody who's had a hamstring like this knows that they're never completely gone. Even if you get to the point where you can play with it and handle it and manage it, it still sucks. So that's probably part of it. I mean, Buddy Hield being gone is an issue. I mean, they didn't get, they haven't gotten a full-scale Doug McDermott back. He's obviously out with a calf strain. So basically that's been it's past a wash. I mean, they've lost a lot more than they've gained for this team on that deal. That's a significant amount of gravity that's gone. He's had to play without it. And I think that's been a serious issue for him. He's had to play a different way. He's looking to set screens. He's also playing off the ball more in general, just because he's been dealing with so many double teams and blitzes that's been like, okay, let's run him off the ball. Let's see if he can create a little bit more space, when he's just not the focal point the whole time. And that's worked sometimes and it's not worked others. And so all in all, and he's still, I think, trying to figure out how to integrate Siakam into what he does. So I think all of those things are really contributing to sort of him being a little bit off. And there's some shots that are makeable that are just not going in. I mean, I think I watched, rewatched a couple of them last night. He had one that just rattled out. And he's just not catching a break right now when it comes to making shots. And certainly, like you said, that's not what you want from your all-star at this point in the season. It's certainly not what he wants on a lot of levels, both from a winning perspective and, he wants to get that all-NBA thing. And certainly that's part of the reason why he got back earlier than he maybe should have the first time around. That he wants to get to that 65 game threshold. But, at this point, the 65 game threshold is not what he needs to worry about if he wants to be all NBA. He needs the numbers. He needs to be able to produce, needs to win to get to be one of those top 15. That is a tough team to make. It's harder than being an all-star. It's a tough stretch for him. Obviously, he can come out of it. I'm sure at some point he will. I don't think it's going to continue forever, but obviously this is a team that's inconsistent to start with. So if your all-star is struggling, that makes it even harder for you to win games.
Yes, and now the Pacers head off to Dallas to take on Luka Doncic, and he's just become quite the magician.
He really, he's
like I hate to compare him to a Larry Bird, but he's got some moves that it's like, some old school. He's got some old school in him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think someone said YMCA game the other day. I mean, he is the height of old man game. Him and Joker both in their own way.
And they kill people with it.
Peak old man game. And on top of that, I mean, he just throws shots in from stupid places and he makes this game look absurdly easy. Like he's not really trying, but he just finds a way to get buckets that way, and he just bodies people and everything like that. I mean, it's awkward. I mean, you don't guard anybody either. And out of anybody who made the All-Star game a farce, Luka has truly made the All-Star game a farce. But his capacity to just make ridiculous shots, make ridiculous passes, make it look like this is an absurdly silly, foolish game that you all play that I have just mastered on ways that you never will. Luka and Joker both do that. And sometimes you watch them, it's like, how on God's green earth did he do that? How does that guy who does not look like he's in shape at all manage to just absolutely work everybody? But it's just incredible skill and just incredible ability to put the ball in the hole and pass it where it's supposed to go. He's incredible. He could just work you. I mean, like he could just body you and just push you back and push you back and push you back. And he doesn't have to be in the best condition in the world. He can just he uses what he's got and annihilates you with it. And so it's really incredible. Now, Pacers beat him last time. It's a different game when they're going on the road. They're coming off a couple losses. But they're going to be dealing with Luka and Kyrie at home, and those two guys are a problem always, and a particularly problem at home.
And the Pacers, they need to keep up the momentum because they're they're at the back end of making the playoffs. And I don't have the standings. There we go.
I do.
Standings. They're sitting in the number 8 spot right now.
Yeah, no, it's not a great place. They're and certainly, I mean, that's another thing they can pull out of fast. They're only 2.5 out of 4th. Really, the Celtics have truly separated themselves. They have won their last 11, and they're cruising, and they just absolutely annihilated Golden State yesterday. The Bucks are 8.5 back. They do look better, I think, since the coaching change. They're defending a little bit better. Cleveland is, a little bit after them. So that's that sort of. There's Boston by themselves, Milwaukee and Cleveland in a second pack, and then there's this third pack that includes the Knicks, the 76ers, the Heat, the Magic, and the Pacers. And the Pacers are only 2.5 back of the Knicks for 4th, but they're in 8th. It seems like everybody but maybe Philadelphia has better positive momentum than they do right now. Now that can change. Again, everything with this Pacers team changes really, really quickly. But it's very, they're in a position where, it's going to be hard for them to avoid the play-in round. Now, I think they're in good position in terms of the play-in round if they had to play in it, that I don't think they'd lose 2 games. Basically, I think if they get Chicago or Brooklyn or Toronto or Atlanta or anybody like that, coming out of the bottom half of the play-in round, I think they'd win, especially if we got to play that game at home. But, if, winning the second play-in game means you get Boston, and the Pacers can beat the Boston once, the Celtics once, they might be able to beat them twice. Beating them in a game best of 7 is different, especially with the way the Celtics seem to be peaking right now. Obviously, they're peaking early, maybe too early for their own good. But if they're anywhere near this in April, they're going to want to demolish whoever they get. So that's not a series that you want. I think that, for this season to be successful, for them to really carry the momentum, I think all they got to do is win a game in the playoffs. Just have something that gives people, a sense of, hey, all right, it's getting back there. You'd like to get to a 7 or a 6 so that you can actually challenge somebody and make it a series, and whether you win it or not, you're like, all right, playoff basketball. That's a reminder of what it's like here. But if they go get just, and I think they'll be fine either way, but if they go get completely demolished by Boston, that's going to not leave as good of a taste in Pacers fans' mouths as they would hope going into this offseason. So, I mean, they got to try to avoid that. They got to win some more games that gets them, up out of 8th. Just, get to 7th somehow, go to a Milwaukee team you beat 4 out of 5 and scare the heck out of them at least. I think that's something that they would rather have going into this. And that means they've got to pick up some more wins. They got to stop losing the teams that they should beat because they keep finding ways of losing the teams that they should beat.
That sure seems to be something that's catching. Next week, when you're able to join us, Indiana is depending on your schedule. Indiana will know are they able to win out or not. They've won back-to-back games now. They've got 2 games left. One again on the road at Minnesota, and then at home against Michigan State. So it's going to be very interesting to see Indiana, who's had such an up and down season, if they can kind of flatten that out at the end. It would be kind of crazy. But safe travels. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch too much yesterday, but just looking at the box score, I was going to say reading Zach's story, but I really mean reading Zach's headline and combining that with the box score and presuming I know what he meant is that, that's the sort of box score you were looking for all year. Obviously, Xavier Johnson hasn't been that guy. Even when he's been healthy, he hasn't been that guy. But he looked at, numbers, look at last night, obviously Ware has really kind of picked up his play. Renew has been what you want him to be. And Mbako was terrific. And so, based on numbers anyway, I mean, so they finally got all the pieces together way too late for it to, probably matter unless they go on an absurd run between now and, the Big Ten tournament. But still, something at least, some level of spark coming in at the end of the year, not good enough to save them from a tournament perspective, maybe at least to give them some sense of who they can be going forward. I mean, and obviously this group's not going to be the same. Ware has to go pro. Johnson's done. And Mbako, has to at least consider it. But all the same, it at least gives you some sense, if you're Mike Woodson, of the way you maybe have to play basketball in 2024. So, we'll see, but at least a start for those guys.
Absolutely. I hope you had some Whataburger while you were down in San Antonio.
I didn't, man. I got something way better. County Line Barbecue, buddy. Oh man.
Nope,
Shut
man.
Up. Don't bring that mess in here, Jim. Come down to the Riverwalk, County Line Barbecue. It'll change your life.
I'm sure it's amazing. Enjoy and safe travels, my friend. We'll look forward to talking to you next Monday.
We'll do. Sounds
Dustin
good, Jim.
Dopirak from the Indy Star on the trail with the Indiana Pacers as they try to get back on the winning trail heading into the playoffs. Lots more coming up in the next hour of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Of course, brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. All right, so this is open.
It is. I've got Woody, X, and Mbako if you want it.
Beautiful. Great job. Great job.
Did Purdue win the outright Big Ten title this weekend or just a share of it?
Yes.
The outright title? I think it's just a share of it.
Right now it's a share, but yeah. Because there's 2 games left, I think that they're 2 games up.
Okay, yeah. If they just lost and someone else won twice, they can share it.
They just have to win 1 more game, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got a 2-game lead over Illinois. They actually play Illinois. So, yeah. I mean, the worst they could do is tie. Who was their last game?
Wisconsin.
Yeah, they do go to Illinois. That's going to be a fun game tomorrow at 7. Yeah, Wisconsin won't do jack, but
I cannot believe how they have fallen.
It would be funny to see Illinois beat Purdue, and for Purdue, even though they win, to win by a game. Oh, Wisconsin.
I can't believe Ohio State, what they've done since they fired Holtman.
Amazing what happens when you have the right coach.
I don't think he's the right coach for them long term.
Well, but I mean,
and it could just be a big coincidence. It may have nothing to do with coaching. Maybe they just didn't like him. Maybe they're playing harder because the guy they didn't like's out on the away from him now. Who knows? I'm sure that's not the case, but
where did that go? Oh, here. All right. So,
all right. And honestly, probably what it is, they're playing freely is because there's no pressure. The pressure was lifted off once the coach was gone. And now they're just playing with momentum. All right, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility.
Contact Amy Rhoda with Rakestraw Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, getting your week kicked off. I was just glancing over the current bracketology bracket, which I'm not going to say doesn't mean anything because it's pretty close, pretty close most of the time. But I'm just all I could do was shake my head at some of the teams that will be in the tournament. Eastern Kentucky or Norfolk State right now slated for a play-in game. Gonzaga slated with it as a play-in game with Providence. Little Rock and Grambling, New Mexico and Richard Pitino. Hey, if they get in, they should celebrate their butts off. Congratulations to Richard Pitino after just getting run out of Minnesota, and I'm sure he's a hell of a lot happier in the warmer confines of New Mexico. Let's see. Colorado State, Clemson is a projected 5 seed. Richmond, Louisiana Tech, South Carolina, a 6 seed. Cornell, Boise State is a 7 seed. Wake Forest, Marquette, who just took another loss. Oakland. Let me say that one again. Oakland. Come on, man. Are you serious? Little
you
Rock,
gotta think
Grambling
that's
State.
more than likely that's an auto bid that they're projecting.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, but still, you're like,
you mentioned Eastern Kentucky, that'll be an auto bid league as well.
yeah. Well,
Grambling, that's an auto bid.
virtually all of those names like that are. Fairfield is another one that's a 15 seed.
They're teams that Purdue needs to watch out for, right?
Steve Alford and his Nevada team looks like they're going to be getting
he's helped
it.
me win some bets. I've bet on Nevada 2 or 3 times this year, and they come through for me.
Well, you're going to start. I'm just going to start letting you play some bets for me. I don't have time, or I don't think about it. Dayton is a 6 seed right now. South Florida. How about South Florida?
Winning
That
the American
basketball
Athletic
powerhouse.
Conference. That's the first time they've won their league, I believe, in history. And that means they did it over Florida Atlantic and Dusty May.
Which this is their first year in that conference.
Correct.
But yeah, that I can tell you right now, I was at the game that probably cost FAU this title was when they lost to Florida Gulf Coast State back in the winter.
I don't think that's their same conference either, but I get what you're saying.
You're sure? Oh,
Florida
I
Gulf
thought
Coast,
they
they're in
were.
a one bid league. Florida Gulf Coast is in
Samford. Sanford
when
and
you
Son.
start calling them Florida Gulf Coast State, that's not their university name. But
not FAU.
No. You were saying Florida Gulf Coast State.
Oh, it's just Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I just think it's funny that you call them Florida Gulf Coast State.
I thought
anyway,
they
state. Are in the league. They're in the Atlantic Sun, the same league that Eastern Kentucky is in.
The same league that. No, that's the A10. Never mind. Colgate
Roadies League.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's the A10. Indiana State, as much as we've been able to talk about them, projected as an 11 seed. You've got Baylor's a 3. High Point, number 14 seed. Vermont, they're going to bring their syrup and their 13 seed right now to take on Kentucky. They need some syrup, maybe pour in their shoes because they have to slow the Wildcats down. They're playing kind of well, right? App State,
they are
a 12 seed. Michigan State is still okay. This is the one that boggles my mind. Michigan State is slotted as a 9 seed right now. I think that Indiana. All right, let's say Indiana beats Wisconsin or Minnesota and beats Michigan State. That would put Indiana at 18 and
they'd be 18
13.
and 13, potentially having an identical record with Michigan State.
Not only that, well, what is Michigan State right now?
They're 17 and 12, and they would have to beat Northwestern and then lose to Indiana for them to have identical records.
Let's see. I got to get this.
And that's their final 2 games. Michigan State also currently on a 3-game losing streak. Losing to Iowa, Ohio State, and on the road at Purdue.
Here's if Michigan State just splits their last 2 games, they go 10 and 10 in the conference and 18 and 13 overall. Indiana would also be 18 and 13. Now let's say they go into the Big Ten tournament and win 2 games and get to 20 wins. And that's
a big key win marker that I feel like a lot of people state to getting into the NCAA tournament.
Not going to matter this year.
And I agree with you. And here's the biggest difference, I'll say, between Indiana and Michigan State. If you're just comparing resumes, if they finish with identical records, the one difference Michigan State will have, even if Indiana beats Michigan State, it's one big difference that the Spartans have in their resumes. They'll have 2 marquee victories. One over number 6 Baylor and one over number 10 Illinois. Indiana does not have any signature victories to speak of. And that's obviously why Michigan State's being considered right now, is because they have those 2 big wins. But
here's what I was up. I said earlier, I was up last night too late, just looking at going over numbers, going over these stupid. The net ranking is almost ridiculous. Because Todd Leary pointed out something to me. He sent me a video to watch and said, "Watch this," and it's regarding the Big 12. And I sent it to Mike DeCourcy, and we'll be talking about it tomorrow. But how the Big 12 really manipulated the net rankings. Their schedules were so horrible, playing these 200 and 300 level teams, and they kicked the crap out of them though. Where Indiana had those teams and they're winning by, oh my God, 1 point, 8 points, barely getting by their teams like that. But the Big 12, they just demolished all those people, and then they get in there, and so then they get their net rankings up high because of that, the disparity, and then they only lose to each other. So you never have a bad loss. Their numbers just don't go down, which it's not. I still think the Big 12 is the best conference. Todd does as well. Mike does not, but there is that. And I'm like, and I had to acknowledge that. And I sent it to Mike. I'm like, well, we can talk. Well, talk
Who
about
does
that.
Mike think is the best conference if it's not the Big 12? Is he
I
the
don't
SEC?
know. I don't. You know what? I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't. That's a good question because I don't know that I asked, and I will tomorrow when he joins us. But the net ranking is just kind of stupid. Just because there's some. I shouldn't say stupid. There's just a few things that
There's
throws
a lot
it
of
all out
wonky
of whack.
things. On top of what you've already said, the fact that a quad one win, like the way that I think the weirdest thing about the net rankings is that a top 75 team on the road beating a team in that range is considered a quad one win. Whereas I believe beating them at home is only in the top 25 or top 30, something like that. But the fact that, for example, like when Indiana beat Ohio State on the road, that was when they were reeling, of course. That just did not seem like something that anyone would have ever considered to be a quad one victory.
I was shocked, but it was. And it's Indiana now, I think 3-7 in quad one games.
Was Maryland a quad one win or quad two?
That should have been a quad one.
So even though Maryland was as low as they are in the Big Ten, they were in the top 75. I mean, I haven't looked at the net rankings, so I don't know any better.
Dude, Ohio State is it's mind-boggling. But anyway, Michigan State is 8-12 in quad one and quad two games combined. They're 4-8 in quad ones and 4-4 in quad twos. Indiana is 7-12 in quad one and quad two games. The difference is Michigan State's net ranking is crazy. It's like it was like 40 something, I think. Indiana is 101. Indiana's net ranking is 101. That's why they have no shot at making the NCAA tournament unless they win the Big Ten tournament. And I'm not being negative. I'm just telling you,
happening.
It's from the numbers, and I'm not saying it's right. But that's not beating Kansas. That really, we said it then, and I'll say it again. That's going to come back to haunt Indiana. That would have been a big win that would have really skewed things a little differently. But
and getting blown out by both Auburn and UConn. You didn't have to win both of those games, but if you're at least a little more competitive, you don't fall nearly as much in the numbers, in the rankings, the net rankings.
Indiana gets a win last night, though, looking good. It's the best they have looked as a team all season, without question. They've got production from all over the place. Kalel Ware was not one of those in the first half offensively, but he still was a huge part of the game for Indiana. He had 15 rebounds by game's end and 9 points after blanking in the first half. Gabe Cupps with a good start. He hits 2 shots to get get things going, and then Xavier comes in off the bench. I think that play has been working. Malik Renew, he got banged, went out for a minute, and Maryland goes on a big run, 12-2 run, but he ends up with 14 points on the night, 5 rebounds on 5 of 8 shooting. Mackenzie Abako, though, he has continued his progression. Another career, that's his, I think, 3rd career points in the last 4 games, 24 points, 4 of 8 behind the 3-point line, 4 of 4 at the free throw line. He was perfect and just led Indiana in that category. Trey Galloway chipped in 12 on 5 of 11 shooting, 0 of 3 behind the arc, 2 of 4 at the line. Xavier Johnson, though, 13 points, 5 of 7 shooting, 6 assists to 1 turnover. With that, Xavier Johnson, that is a team that Indiana could win. They didn't know if they were always had that Xavier, and when he wasn't hurt, but he's
not only that,
very well.
He had his injury. He came back. He started getting in a bunch of trouble with referees and stuff like that, making poor decisions on the court, and then gets hurt again. And so the fact that it took this long to get the Xavier Johnson that fans really want to see. It is a bit of a shame because right now, I mean, we've already said it a bunch today. It is a little too late. I mean, yeah, they can go on a run. They can salvage their season, at least in a bit of a way, but the end goal is not where fans really want it to be, which is the NCAA tournament. But it will be nice to see that, I mean, if they're able to do so, finish the season and even the Big Ten tournament with positive momentum going into the offseason as you look toward next year.
Looking forward to it. And let's see. Are we at break or where are we, John?
We are.
All right. When we come back, we'll hear from Travis Miller, and we've got Mike Woodson yet to hear from, and Mackenzie Mbako and Xavier Johnson as well. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Ugly Grouper on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Shockingly, you know that Florida is our number 3 state by listener on YouTube, viewer rather, however you want to say it. Shocking. They're just climbing up. A lot of Floridians, or a lot of IU fans down in Florida, as well as Purdue fans as well, I'm sure. But when you have the opportunity on it, if you're near Anna Maria Island, stop in the Ugly Grouper. Tell them we sent you. They'll take care of you. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio and Travis Miller from Boiler Upload right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly BB. All right.
Good morning, Travis.
Morning. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Let's see.
I changed chairs so I wouldn't have Cat walk in front of me or on the computer, hopefully.
Man, you look, just put your feet up.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, it's day 1 of fun employment. Got to enjoy it.
Are you holding that microphone?
Yeah, I can. Let me go in my dining room.
No, I don't care. I was just going to make fun of you because I noticed there's a guy that's doing a podcast. It's an IU podcast, but he's got like one of those little boom mics that goes onto a camera, kind of like that.
Yeah,
and he holds it the whole time, and I'm like, dude, you're trying to do like a 45-minute podcast, and you're going to sit there and hold the mic the whole time.
Maybe he wants to be a stand-up comedian. I don't know.
I was like, hey, I've got an extra mic boom in my closet. I'll give you.
Yeah, I need to get like the whole fancy home studio set up.
Let's see. Man. Hey, is Chris Denary with us this week?
He didn't say otherwise.
All right. I've got Pat and Sharon coming back on. And I'm trying to find a spot that is as loose as possible because it'll probably go just over a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. We can find something for him. Honestly, if you want to do it on Friday, it might be a good time for it.
Oh man. You think we could get Casey at 9?
I can always move Casey to the first hour if he's able, because that works for Fort Wayne anyway.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe do him at 9 after
9,
Bob.
10. Yeah, 9:10. We can
and then
do that.
And then I'll get those guys at 9:50, and we can, if we go long,
take them to the end if we need to. Yeah, that's fine.
Take them to the end, my friend.
All right, here we go.
See,
guys.
John doesn't get that, Travis. Thank you. Payment free for 90 days or get 0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you. As always, brought to you by our good friends down in Clarksville, Bubba's 33, right off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Pizza, burgers, and beer, 51 TVs to watch any game you want, and all kinds of other things. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload joining us now. Travis, we've been talking about the Big Ten standings. Indiana gets a big win last night on the road at Minnesota. No, where the hell were they? Maryland. Boy, too much going in.
If only you wrote about Indiana stuff, Jim.
It would just be great if I knew anything. But yeah, it's wild now. The most interesting part of the Big Ten standings are from just below the middle down, because that is where there is this storm brewing between, say Minnesota. Oh, I just blanked myself. Minnesota, Michigan State, Indiana, all of those teams that are fighting to stay out of that bottom four. And Indiana did themselves a huge favor by getting that win last night. But it's actually going to be wild to watch these guys battle it out.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to credit Paul Branham, who was one of the former drivers of the Boilermaker Special. He posted on Twitter last night a screenshot of the current Big Ten standings from, I think it was the Michigan-Ohio State broadcast, and pointed out that it is the revenge of the Big Ten West. Because if you look at the standings, right now, the top 7 teams are the zombie Big Ten West, and the bottom 7 are the Big Ten
Oh, my God. That is absolutely correct.
I mean, technically Minnesota and Michigan State are tied for 7th, but just the way it looks is it's really nice, and it's nice to see that, and just kind of a little bit of oh, okay, cool.
It is exactly that. That is wild. At Minnesota and Michigan State, they're exactly tied, and then you just go outward. On one direction you go up, and the other one you go completely down. And the direction down is the old Big Ten East. Kind of funny. What a good catch.
It's pretty funny. And I think what you're seeing is as we go into the last week of the season, you've got a couple teams that may have played themselves into some NCAA tournament consideration. Iowa is pretty.
Who do you think that is?
Now. Yeah, I think Iowa's pretty hot right now. They're getting at least somewhat close to the bubble. One team I would actually watch out for, and it's probably crazy. Look at Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Yes. They only have one regular season game left. They're sitting at 59 in the net ratings. But if they win it, they are 19-2. They have to go to Rutgers. Very winnable game for them. And they have 3 quadrant 1 wins. They obviously have a gigantic win with their victory over Purdue on their resume. They've got an earlier win over Alabama, which is one of the better non-conference wins that you can have out there. And if they were to beat Rutgers and win a couple of games in the Big Ten tournament, that puts them at 21 wins on the season. You just never know with that.
They're 59. They're 59th in the net rankings.
Yeah. And, a couple wins in the Big Ten tournament where you got the target-rich environment of getting some top 50 wins out there. I mean, worse teams have gotten into the tournament, honestly. And I think that's just credit to what their interim coach has done. And it's amazing that he has lifted this program. And it makes you wonder, it's like, okay, what was Chris Holtman doing wrong if all of a sudden this team is playing that well and has a legitimate shot of making the NCAA tournament?
It is truly wild. I was talking about that earlier, and John made reference to maybe they're playing freer without pressure, and it's not that necessarily Holtman was putting pressure on him, but maybe it was pressure he was feeling and that it was just coming through. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's working for the interim coach. And to even consider the fact that they are a potential NCAA team is beyond mind-boggling. But I also look at Michigan State. As much as everybody loves them, their record is pretty damn close to Indiana's, with the exception of their 22nd in the net rankings, and Indiana's 104th. I cannot comprehend there being that much of a disparity. I don't care what you're going to say. Indiana won too many close games, because Michigan State is 8-12 combined in quad 1 and quad 2 wins. Indiana's 7-12 in those same. So you're one game difference there. If they beat Michigan State, they could possibly end up with a better record, a win over them, and be 50 spots below them in the net rankings.
That's crazy. And I know it all comes from the non-conference schedule. I'm looking at Michigan State's right now. They have a win over Butler, which, that's not a terrible win. It was at home. They played Arizona. They played Arizona. They played Duke. They've got a neutral court win over Baylor. They've got a win over Indiana State, which looks really good right now, honestly. And that James Madison loss to start the season, at the time, it looked kind of disastrous. Now James Madison's 27-3. That's not a ding on their record, really. So, I question.
They've lost 3 straight on top of that.
Yeah, and I question whether Michigan State deserves to be in the tournament. Their net ranking is saving them, honestly, right now. But one of my personal pet peeves, and this would be my argument against Ohio State getting in as well. I hate it when a major conference team gets an at-large bid with a sub-500 record in their conference. I don't think that they should be eligible. It's like, okay.
I don't know how it would be possible in the Big Ten this year, even though the Big Ten is still second in the net rankings as a conference, which I'm like, okay, how the hell is that possible when you've got the SEC that has so many more teams are at the top that are better, and even their teams at the lower end, like Ole Miss, who does not have a great out of conference schedule, their record is pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
But the Southeastern Conference is not ranked as high as the Big Ten.
It's weird. It's weird how these things work out. And you look at Michigan State, they finished with Northwestern and at Indiana. Neither one of those games is an automatic W for them. They've already lost at Northwestern. This will be the only time that they play Indiana, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if they lose both of those, and that's 5 straight losses going into the Big Ten tournament, that would have them at 9-11 in the conference. Yeah, their net rating is going to be high, but at some point you just got to be like, okay, you're a 17-14 team.
Yes.
If they drop that Big Ten tournament opener, who knows what's going to happen to them? And that is
there's no way. If they lose to Indiana and lose in their first Big Ten game and still get into the tournament, then that's shady. That's just shady.
Personally,
and I don't think
they should have gotten in 2 years ago, or no, 3 years ago when the tournament was played all in Indiana, because they snuck in as a first 4 team and had to play at Mackey Arena and they lost. But that was a very, very questionable Michigan State team as well that got in.
And, this isn't about Indiana, but we were talking about it earlier. Indiana could get to 20 wins. They have to go to Minnesota tomorrow night. Winnable game, not easy. But if they play like they played last night, they could beat Minnesota. And then you come back and you have to home and play Michigan State. Also a winnable game. Let's just for argument's sake say they win both of those games. That puts them at 18-13. And if Indiana would probably be better off playing the first day, to be honest with you, in the Big Ten tournament to add an extra win. But that won't be the case if they win those 2 games. So winning 2 more in the Big Ten tournament is going to be tougher. But if they were, for argument's sake, and they got to 20 wins and were 20-14, they would still not make the tournament because of their net ranking, and they would be better record than Michigan State, a win over Michigan State, higher in the Big Ten standings than Michigan State, and still wouldn't get in.
And that goes back to the non-conference record. I'm looking here at Indiana's. What is the marquee non-conference win? Is it Louisville? Is it Harvard?
Crickets.
Yeah.
I wish I had the cricket sound.
Yeah.
I said it. I remember saying it then, and I've said it already today. The loss to Kansas is just it's like a tick that's burrowed under your skin. It's been there all season long, sucking the blood out of Indiana's chances, because that was a game that they could have won, that would have been that marquee win, and everybody else beat Kansas. Why didn't you? But so wasn't able to get that done, and that's a huge thing. Fortunately for them, they're playing better now. I think it's too little, too late. Great win last night for the Hoosiers on the road, down by 16 in the second half, and they're able to come back. They got production from everybody, even Khalil Ware, who didn't score in the first half, was still rebounding and doing a lot of other things. But they look better as a team than they have looked all season.
Well, and the Big Ten tournament does offer an opportunity. I mean, it's not
for Indiana. The Big Ten tournament is to Indiana what the NCAA tournament is to Purdue. No offense.
I've seen that.
That is, I don't know what it is, but it's just like there's an anti-serum or something for Indiana with the Big Ten tournament. That is mind-boggling to me.
Especially since there's been some, they've played there in Indianapolis in a number of them, and they've lost 3 games on just heroic buzzer beaters in the history in Indy. Like I know you had the Michigan one in the corner, you had Iowa a couple of years ago, you had the infamous Minnesota full court pass one.
Which one was it? The guy from his butt, was that Minnesota or Wisconsin?
I think that was Minnesota, but
yeah.
And I remember being there for the Michigan one, because that was the year that Indiana was the number 1 seed. And I was standing down in the corner behind the Michigan bench. And the phrase from Star Wars, it was like a million voices cried out in horror and then were suddenly silenced. You had, 10,000 Indiana fans in Bankers Life Fieldhouse, or Gainbridge Fieldhouse now, excuse me. And just the shriek and then the silence when they lost that game. And you're just like, is this a snake-bitten team in the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, it's nuts. The Boilermakers, they 2 games left. They have clinched a share of the Big Ten championship. They're 26th. They have a trip coming up to Purdue tomorrow, in which that should be a good game. Illinois can use that game for tournament seeding purposes. They have an outside shot at catching Purdue, but that's going to take them beating Purdue and then Purdue losing at home to I forget who they play their last game.
Purdue plays Wisconsin, and then Illinois still has to go to Iowa. And Iowa's trying to play its way into the tournament, so that's not an automatic win for Illinois,
but Purdue's
either.
not going to lose at home to Wisconsin. Wisconsin is terrible right now. I haven't seen a team just drop like that. It's crazy, but
yeah,
it should be interesting. Purdue going to Illinois, that should be a hell of a game regardless. We're 2 games from the season being over, and then the Big Ten tournament starting up in Minneapolis. So you're not going, you're sending Casey, huh?
Yeah, Casey's going to be up there. I will be at the first and second rounds, provided Purdue is placed here in Indianapolis, which let's face it, they should be routed through Indianapolis right now. I think that even if Purdue loses these next 2 games, they're probably going to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. It would take them losing both and probably an injury, unfortunately, and then a loss in the Big Ten tournament for them to lose that preferred placement. But getting to play in Indianapolis and then going to Detroit for the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. Honestly, you can't ask for a better path. I think a few years ago they could have gone Indy to Chicago to the Final Four, and it just didn't work out that way. But you're not going to get an easier path than Purdue's going to get this year. There's obviously no guaranteed path to a Final Four, but short of getting to play all 4 games in Mackey Arena, this is about as good as Purdue is ever going to get. So, like you've said, this has got to be the year. We've said it for weeks, and we're finally on the cusp of that. And hopefully this team does just have a different edge about it. They're a lot more poised. I'm liking the guard play. I don't think they particularly played too well against Michigan State for the longest time. It was just Fletcher Lawyer, Braden Smith, and Zach Edey had done all the scoring, but they were able to get it done against a Michigan State team that was playing pretty well in that game. So it remains to be seen what happens once March begins. I know I am not alone in being nervous. It's just the natural state of things for if you're a Purdue fan. Every game is going to be nerve-rattling, but if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen this year. I'm starting to get a little bit optimistic, and that probably
if it's going to happen, doesn't it almost have to happen this year with what they have? I mean, you've got a generational player that just doesn't come along. Zach Edey is he's an amazing presence in college basketball, one that the likes you don't see very often. He's a Wilt Chamberlain type, just something that you don't see a lot, and you don't get those back. So we'll pick it up on the other side. We've got to take a quick break. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload is with us right now, brought to you by our good friends at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville down in southern Indiana, right off of I-65 on Veterans Parkway. Stop in. Pizza, burgers, beer, great place to catch a game, lunch, dinner, whatever. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market.
How about IU baseball? Good start for IU baseball.
They had a bad weekend, though.
Did they?
Yeah, I think they got run ruled twice.
Didn't they get beat by some no-name team?
Yeah, Purdue Fort Wayne.
That was earlier in the week, though. That wasn't this weekend. This weekend they played a really.
Games are so
who
weird.
Did they play? So they're 7-4 after this weekend, and what did they do? Hold on. They lost 0-12 to Alabama. They beat Dallas Baptist 9-7, and they lost 1-12 to Arizona. Two of those teams are ranked. For Alabama and Dallas Baptist were in the top 25.
Dallas Baptist.
DBU.
They are a solid team.
I want to talk about Caitlin Clark and his stupid ass Pete Maravich record. I am so sick and tired of hearing about that. I'm like, y'all got to shut up. Quit spouting off that she broke Pete Maravich. She did not break Pete Maravich's record. I don't care what they say. I don't care. She did not break that record. First of all, he didn't have any. Well, I better save this, but he didn't have the extra points for hitting the multiple 3-pointers he would have hit when he played, because he was a big shooter. A. B. Give him that 4th year that he did not get at his average at 44 points a game times the same amount of games that Caitlin Clark played. That comes to 5,736 without adding a 3-point shot to it. That's without a 3-point shot. Now, you take the 3-point shot away from Caitlin Clark, she is 3176, still 500, that many points away from him. And that's in 4 years. So Stop with that crap. I hate when they try to push that narrative of equality. It's not about equality. That's not equal. It's not equal. They're not the same.
We've got something similar with Zach Edey, so I'll have a lot on that.
Products around and everything you need to make a gourmet meal at home, or pick out a tomahawk steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday, starting your week off right. Brought to you by our good friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. For our fans down in the southern Indiana area, make sure you keep that championship smile. Go see Dr. J, and he'll take care of you. Something that I want to talk about, I saw a pop on this a second ago. Sean says he's not a Caitlin Clark fan, but he loves what she has done for women's basketball. Having 3 daughters, it's fun to watch an interest of theirs start to get mainstream media attention. No doubt about that. She is a generational player. She's sensational. Do not get me wrong. She's a baller. I mean, she's a straight up baller, and I think nothing less than that. She is good. She's not a ball hog. She's one of only 6 women in the history of college basketball with over 1,000 assists, and she's the scoring leader. That's nuts. That's some serious balling going on there. But this record stuff, that's fine for owning the women's record, but she did not break Pete Maravich's record. And in actuality, the women's record that she broke also did not have the 3-point shot. So all the records that she broke, none of those people had 3-point shots. But Pete Maravich specifically, not only did he not have that advantage, he played a year less because freshmen were not allowed to play. He only was able to play 3 years. But in that time, he averaged 44 points and only played 83 games. Caitlin Clark has already played 130 games. That's 50 more games. 50. And the 3-point differential, if you take off the 3 points for the 509 that she's hit, that takes her back to 3,176 points. Or if you multiply Maravich's average times the 130 games that Caitlin Clark has played, well, that comes up to 5,736, and that's without 3-point shot being added to that. He would have clearly been over 6,000 points probably, which would have been mind-boggling. But I just don't – I hate hearing that she broke Pete Maravich's record. No, she didn't. She really did not, and that's just my take on that. Sorry. It's not sexist. This is just, if this would have been a guy and something else, I'd say the same thing. These are not the same.
I tend to agree a little bit on that, just because you've got a situation at Purdue where Zach Edey is now 94 points behind the all-time scoring record of Rick Mount at Purdue. But again, there's some differences there. Mount only played 3 seasons. Edey played 4. Even in those seasons, back then they were only playing, 25, 30 games a year. Now you've got a 31 game regular season. You have 3 or 4 Big Ten tournament games. You can play 40 games in a year where, that's a way you can get extra games, even if, both Pete Maravich and Rick Mount played 4 years in their career. Now, Edey does have the advantage of he is a better all-time 3-point shooter than Rick Mount. But
Wait a minute. Whoa. That's only because Rick Mount didn't have the 3-point shot.
Hey, 1-0. 1-0.
I was going to say, he's got 1. So at least you don't have that. At least you don't have that argument of the 3-2 thing. But Yeah, see, that's another thing. Rick Mount is a Purdue legend. Not that Zach Edey, I guess, won't be, but it's different. When you're a scorer like Rick Mount scored, that's old time scoring basketball, man. That's not. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you give me Zach Edey's body, I'm going to be a pretty damn good ball player. I think if you have Zach Edey's body, you're going to be a pretty damn good ball player. And I don't mean to disparage. I'm just saying, give me a 7-foot, 260-pound body, and let me see what I can do with it.
Also, if you put Zach Edey in 1969 when Rick Mount was playing, dear God, he's going to kill somebody.
No doubt there. But yeah, they had those guys. But so, what is the thought by Purdue fans on that?
I think honestly, they're pretty even about it. They understand what the situation is. You can't take a single thing away from Mount did. I think what there was somebody that tracked down a video of his infamous 61-point game against Iowa, and through some, sleight of hand and guessing and, shot charting and everything, they estimate it would have been a 74-point game with the 3-point shot, just by where he shot from the floor and everything else. But, if Rick Mount plays 4 years with a 3-point line, he's going to be up there well over 3,000 points. So I think people realize that, but they're also willing to give Edey his credit here. And the thing is Edey has already got one all-time Purdue record. He passed Joe Barry Carroll for the most rebounds in school history. I think he's going to finish top 5 in the Big Ten in that category. And he has the most double-doubles. I mean, he is cementing his way in multiple categories, and I think he's at least going to be remembered on the level of a Rick Mount, plus 2 National Player of the Year awards. Nobody's done that in 40 years. So it's just, regardless of what Purdue does here in March, he's going to go down as one of the best, if not maybe the best player that has ever played at Purdue. Do you take Glenn Robinson over him straight up? Probably, but they're different type of players. Do you have Rick Mount, and put him in 2014 with his ability to shoot threes? Does he have like a Steph Curry like game? Probably. I think another guy that could have been up there, honestly, and probably would have passed Mount as well, and would be the all-time leading scorer, Carson Edwards. He only played 3 years, and that's your analog. I think he got up around 1,900 points by the time he was all said and done. He would have shattered Mount's record if he had come back, and he's the one that had that 3-point line. So you just got a guy here that he's been a steady producer from day one, and regardless of what that record is or how many games it was set, to break a record like that, you've got to get a head start as a freshman. And you can't just have a freshman year of you average 4 points a game or something. No, you've got to put in the numbers out there from day one, and that's what Edey's done, and I think that's what's so impressive about him.
Yeah, Indiana has that as well. Jimmy Rail was a guy back in the I think he was in the 50s or 60s. I can't remember.
Mr. Basketball, 1959, my high school, Kokomo.
Really?
Yes.
There you go. But he was a guy that someone said they did the same thing once, that they went back and looked, and he would have had a couple of 70-point games had they had that in place then. But then you got someone like George McGinnis, also did not get to play as a freshman, plays 1 year for Indiana as a sophomore because his father dies and he ends up turning pro. But he averaged 24 points, and he was the leading scorer and rebounder in the Big Ten as a sophomore, the only year he played. So if you imagine that dude playing for 4 years, that changes the deal. And that's just at 2-point scoring. So there's always going to be differences. But again, getting back to the Pete Maravich thing, no. I like last year when Antoine Davis was this close to getting to that record, and they tried their ass they tried to buy into the CBI tournament, 3 points shy, and they wouldn't take them. And I was glad to see that, because I would have hated, because he was a 5th-year player. That would have been just not cool, man. But Pete Maravich is still, to me, the all-time leading scorer in men's history, in my opinion. But that's just my stupid opinion, and that's okay.
Yeah, I remember that with Davis, and I think like they came down to their last game, and they were trying to give him a 3-pointer in the last minute to tie it, and he just couldn't knock it down. So, that's unfortunately the way it is with college. There's no uniform way across the board. I mean, you see it in college football. You can play 15 games in a season now. That makes it very easy to destroy some records. I mean, Curtis Painter is Purdue's all-time single-season passing leader. He passed Drew Brees by 2 yards. Drew Brees did it in a season where he only played, I think, 13 games, maybe 12. Curtis Painter had 14. He had a full extra game. Do I think Curtis Painter is better than Drew Brees? Absolutely not. But he has the record right now because he played more games. And so that's just the way it is with a lot of these all-time records. And I still, you got to hold Pete Maravich as one of the greatest ever because nobody's going to average 44 points a game. Not even in one season, let alone for a career. If somebody averaged 30 points a game right now, they would go down as incredible.
And he didn't do this at St. Mary's of the Woods. He was at LSU at a Power 5 school. So it's not like he was playing at some Division III school. Big Ten tournament coming up. The women's tournament actually coming up. Indiana's a 3 seed there. They had senior night last night. They also beat Maryland. Congratulations to them as that tournament gets underway here in a couple of days up in the glorious Minneapolis, Minnesota. Oh, wow. The destination of paradise.
At least they're an original Big Ten member. They've been around the whole time. It's not like we're trying
nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about that. I don't care if they joined last year. When that was
care
announced,
about it because that is the meal ticket for Purdue. We started the Big Ten, and we get to hang on to that money train as a result.
Well, I'm just saying, as far as having to go up to Minneapolis for this tournament, the Big Ten has done things like have it in New York, have it in Washington. I get that. I understand what they were doing. They're trying to just spread their brand. New York is the largest TV market in the country. Washington is another top 5 TV market. That's what they were doing. They're trying to brand. People were get all upset about it, but hey, man, I get it. Everybody wants it to be an Indy, and that would be lovely. That's great for us because that's convenient as hell. And it's most convenient for most of the teams around in the Big Ten, but they're going to potentially move it around more. I think I saw Andy Katz listed a potential list on there was Detroit, which I'm like, no, thank you. We don't need any. You've got Indy and Chicago. You don't need Detroit. It's just not needed. Now, Las Vegas was on that list, and there were, I know some IU fans responded, "Oh, that's terrible. Nobody's gonna." I'm like, apparently you didn't go to the Indiana-Arizona game last year because it was 75% IU fans at that game. 75% IU fans against Arizona in Las Vegas. Arizona is like 2 hours away from Vegas. So that people that think that, no, Vegas would be a draw. I think it would be a draw because you're not getting as many tickets anyway for each team, but I think it would be a draw. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I tend to think so too. I think it's neat, would be neat as a one-off. I didn't like it when it was in New York because of the way they forced it in there and you had an entire week off before the NCAA tournament. Plus, I also think that Madison Square Garden is incredibly hilariously overrated as a venue. It's like, great, you have a monument to crappy NBA basketball for the last half century. Good for you guys. But I also am just an advocate of keep it in Chicago, keep it in Indy. They know what they're doing. They're great events there. They sell out. You have just good games every time. If it's an Indy, Purdue fans are going to show up. Indiana fans are going to show up. Yeah, just keep it where there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. And if you're talking about TV markets, all these games are on a streaming service or cable anyway. You're not in the days of broadcast television where you have to hope that it is a CBS weekly game. I mean, 11 of the games or whatever are on the Big Ten network, and you've got to have cable regardless of where you are. If you're in Nome, Alaska or New York City, you got to have cable or a streaming service to get Big Ten Network to watch it. So what's it matter where it is? You can play the damn thing on the moon and people would watch it.
Yes, let's do that. Big thanks, Travis Miller from Boiler Upload, brother. Look forward to doing it again next week.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Make sure you're giving him a follow if you're a Boiler fan or if you just want to find out what's going on in that realm of the conference. Big thanks to Greg Rakestraw, of course, from the ISC Sports Network, Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, and, of course, Travis Miller, John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines, and most importantly, to each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here, and we are grateful. Back tomorrow to do it all again. Important things coming up at the end of the week. Pat Graham and Sharon Wilkerson will be joining us again together as they will be facing off in sectional play this week. Also, Gabe Sularski will be visiting Indiana on Sunday. We'll have more on that as well. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.